major story out of the NHL this morning is the passing of Börje Salming, one of the greatest players in Canadian hockey history. The longtime defenseman for the Toronto Maple Leafs died yesterday at 71 following his battle with ALS, a revered Maple Leaf, a revered member of the Swedish hockey community, and some very, very sad news yesterday. Darryl Sittler isn't just one of the great players in Leaf history, one of the greatest captains in Leaf history. He's also a dear friend of Börje, and he's been kind enough to join us live from his home in Jupiter, Florida this morning. Darryl, our condolences to you and all of his family and dear, dear friends. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a sad day for all of us, but I guess at the same time, I've been following Börje and his family through this journey since July. The fact that he got here a couple weeks ago to show his appreciation for all of us and the fans, and we got to spend some time with him and his family. They went back to Sweden last Thursday. They honored him, 100th anniversary of the Swedish Ice Hockey Federation, gave him an award for being the trailblazer, first player to come to the National Hockey League. And then here we are a week or two later, and Börje's not with us. But in all honesty, it's probably a blessing for Börje and his family. As you know and I know, Sid, ALS is a horrible, brutal disease for not only the person that has it, but the family that goes through it. So Börje's at peace and his family's at peace, and we just have lots of fond memories, and that's all we should think about and share.
So many fond memories. I mean, a Hall of Famer, back inducted in 1996, and so many amazing years with the Leafs organization. He paved the way for so many players coming over from Europe. But Darryl, and forgive me, this is probably the 1,000th time someone has brought this up to you, the images from 2 weeks ago at Hall of Fame weekend at Scotiabank Arena, where it's centered around not just Börje, but yourself and so many people who loved him. Little did we know what would happen a few weeks later. Darryl, what was going through your head in this moment on Remembrance Day on the Friday night?
Well, first of all, to back it up, the fact that Börje made it over here for that celebration was unbelievable. Until 2 days before, nobody knew whether he was going to get medical clearance. He gave the thumbs up, and the reason he was here is he was just that type of a player. As a player, when there was a challenge in front of him and he wanted it, he would go and get it. So the fact that he arrived and they asked if I would walk out to center ice with him, knowing that he'd been to many other previous NHL Hall of Fame events like this. The fact that there were 3 Swedes going in, and Mats was there. I remember walking by the players' bench and looking at the stoic, somber faces of our current players, and then eye contact with Willie Nylander and Börje's big hug. That kind of really hit at my heartstrings for sure. When we were introduced and announced, I know it was hard for us to hear the sound system. I wasn't sure whether Börje exactly knew that they were announcing him, so I grabbed his hand and put him up for a wave. And it's a magical moment. It's a precious moment in sport, something that I was proud to be a part of, and anybody who watched the part of it will always remember, and deservingly so for Börje Salming and his family. One of the things that was so nice for guys like Lanny, Tiger, myself, other teammates of his, Börje played with 200 Maple Leafs over the span of his career, and many guys came to see him while he was in town. But his family said to us that they've never seen him so happy in that weekend that he was here in Toronto. When he was diagnosed with ALS, there was a lot of obviously tough depressions and a lot of things he was going through, but the fact that he was here, and to me, you couldn't have scripted it any better than it was. So fond memories, and so happy for Börje Salming. We're going to miss him.
Well said, Darryl. I mean, there's so many. Time is never our friend on this show because we're busy. But the one thing I do want to bring up with you is because you had a front row seat to this better than anyone else. And you don't need me to explain it. Darryl's going to explain it. When Börje Salming came into the NHL, there was a lot of the league that didn't want him there. Europeans in the NHL were new. And some of the physical abuse that he took was incredible. Darryl, go ahead, please, jump in.
No, totally. Börje came over as a 23-year-old from a small town in Sweden, first European player. And our game was brutal back then, to be honest with you. There was bullies in it, intimidation. You know, the physicality of the game was different than it is now. And Börje was a target, and they wanted to throw him off his game. I remember many nights where we'd come into the dressing room, into the shower afterwards, and he had welts all over his arms and his neck, and his guys spearing him. And but he just played through it. And for him to have 16 years in the National Hockey League, to be one of the top 100 of all time, it's amazing. And that's what we respected so much of Börje. And he earned the respect of not only his own teammates, but the players that played against him. And that's why he is the guy that we recognize and feel for today. We're going to miss him for sure. That honor that the Leaf fans gave him in the Canada Cup in '76, I was on Team Canada, but Börje, as a Swedish player, when introduced, got a larger, longer standing ovation than anybody else. So it tells you how people respected him, what they thought of him.
Finally, Darryl, there's a large younger population of Leaf fans that don't know the Börje experience and the type of player he was and didn't live it like that. And it's not their fault, but they're looking at the story from a different perspective. To the younger person watching this, who's a Leaf fan, what's the biggest takeaway they need to always remember about his career, in your opinion?
Well, he had such a passion and a desire to play game in and game out. But he was such a humble guy too. Börje was just Börje. He didn't like all the limelight that came with it. He stayed out of controversy, which I respected him for that. And he just wanted to play the game and loved it and played so hard, game in and game out. And he was an awesome teammate and an awesome friend. One of the things I've always looked forward to, no different than Lanny and Tiger and his teammates, he would make sure he came over here a couple times a year. We'd get together, spend some time together, and that's why our friendship is what it is today. So you young guys, if you have a friend, appreciate it. Don't take it for granted, and do what you can to keep that friendship alive, for sure.
I know a closing line when I hear it. One of the greatest Maple Leafs of all time, Darryl Sittler, talking about the late Börje Salming. Darryl, God bless. Take care. Let's talk again soon. Thank you.